go to the international game this week, back in London. Of course, it's the Jaguars. They're always usually involved in this, unfortunately for them. But it is the Bills that will be also going with them across the pond. Buffalo, they are the favorite. It's technically they are technically the home at home, which I mentioned before, sorry, but just sucks. It sucks that you lose a home game just to go not play at home. Anyway, quote unquote, the Bills are at home. They are the favorites, favored by 5.5 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams coming off big wins last week. What are your thoughts here and for how much?
I'm going to go with Buffalo, although I think Jacksonville last week had some encouraging signs. I'm still not quite ready to hop on the Jaguars train and think that they're quite ready to compete with the big boys yet, because that was Atlanta who can't throw the ball. So, yeah, I'm taking Buffalo. The 5.5 feels a little bit low considering just how utterly dominant they've been. Offensively, they're throwing up 30 plus a game right now. Defensively, they've been absolutely lights out, including a better offense in Miami. I do think that Lawrence is a better quarterback than Tua, but so far this season, he hasn't really shown it, and the offense just hasn't really got going yet. So, yeah, taking the Bills over the Jags. Only going to put 50 because I do think, things get weird in these kind of games, and who knows? Maybe the Jags actually start to figure it out, because I do think in terms of potential, they have the options to compete with Buffalo. Considering that, I'm pretty sure I picked them. I don't know. Maybe you did too. I picked them to beat Buffalo in the playoffs, I think. Or no, you picked Cincinnati to do it before the season started.
I think I had them as like the 2 or 3 seed. So I had the Jaguars in high regard.
So we both know that this team is like good and they have talent and they're capable of good things. And also Buffalo losing Tre'Davious White, the first week after, maybe there's a little bit of an opening that the Jaguars could take advantage of. So that's why I'm only going to put 50. But I do feel confident that Buffalo is going to come out and get the win here.
Yeah, I too am going with the Bills. I'm going for them with the standard 100 here, just because I'm a little more confident. They have been outside of the Tre'Davious White injury, which is, does suck for Tre'Davious and for them. It's terrible. But in regards to the Bills, at least offensively, they've been rolling the past few weeks. And like you mentioned, Jags haven't really faced a clicking offense like this, at least that defense yet. And on the flip side, Jaguars offense, even last week, wasn't perfect. They're still showing signs of, it was better last week, obviously, but, weeks prior showed signs of struggles, and teams kind of had a good feel for where they wanted to attack. And there's no one better at dropping guys into knowing that stuff and dropping guys in the right coverages and just kind of scheming their zones to areas where they know that they're going to throw the ball, they like to throw the ball to, than Sean McDermott and the Bills. And like we saw last week, they're able to at least slow down Miami. You can't, hard to shut them down, but they slowed them down. And I feel like Jacksonville, less creative offense, definitely less talented skill position guys. And, like we've been alluding to, they're still kind of figuring it all out in regards to putting it all together to consistently be, a force every week in and week out. So I'm going with the Bills. Been there, done that. A little more confident than John, as John is going with the Bills for 50, and I'm going for 100. So be nice. We'll see what happens. Honestly, I'll probably have to rewatch. This will be one that I don't know about you. I don't know. Do you, by the way, get up and watch the international games? Or is that one you just wake up later and check the box score?
I did last week.
Okay.
But that was also a unique situation where I was watching my parents' dog, and she wakes up. She has to, eat and go outside and all that stuff in the morning. So I was awake. But normally I just kind of wake up when I wake up and I throw it on, because I'm usually awake sometime in the first half or around halftime. So yeah, but I don't make the concerted effort to catch the whole game. If I miss it, I miss it.
I did once last year to actually watch it live. It was, of course, the Packers-Giants one, and you probably remember how that one ended. So, so now I just wake up, and it's just a pleasant surprise when I wake up at 11:30 Central Standard Time right before the games. So, all right. So I'll probably sleep through this one and wake up to see the results. So we'll see. It sucks too, because that's actually a good matchup. That would be a better Thursday nighter. But I know obviously NFL is trying to give the international folks an actual good game, because they kind of just been throwing the scraps at them in terms of matchups. So
the first handful of London games were always rough, because it was like the Jags were like peak terrible. They were like the worst team in the NFL at that point.
Like the best teams they threw were like the Vikings one year, and that was like still like the Mike Zimmer mid Vikings too.
Yeah, like the tail end too, like not prime Mike Zimmer Vikings, like kind of at the end, you know.
Yeah, like when they're still figuring, like still kind of realizing that hey, Justin Jefferson's pretty good, you know. But nonetheless, that's probably the best team at least until Buffalo has been sent over. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to the noon/early Sunday games that are going to be in the continental United States. Starting with the AFC North matchup, the Baltimore Ravens, they are favored by 3.5 points going to Pittsburgh. I almost said Heinz Field. I want to say it every time. Unfortunately, it's not Heinz Field. But nonetheless, Ravens favored by 3.5 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who do you have here and for how much, John?
I'm going Baltimore, and I'm going big. I'm putting 300 on this one. It's just the same old concern that I have about Pittsburgh, and that's I don't know where the offensive production is going to come from. And I also don't even know if Kenny Pickett's going to be starting in this one. We saw last week he got hurt. Trubisky had to come in. I know that they've been saying that they're going to take it easy and they're going to see how he does in practice. And there have been some reports saying that he's expecting to play. But even then, how good does he look when he's playing? I don't know. So the concern is there for me. Meanwhile, Baltimore, their style, they're not going to turn the ball over a ton. Lamar in that offense has looked relatively good. The defense has been solid. I mean, last week they did play a rookie in DTR, so there's only so much he could do. But I don't know. It's like I said, I just have almost no faith in the Steelers' offense at this point. Deontay Johnson's still hurt. Najee Harris had that one good game last week, but that was kind of it. Otherwise, he's been largely inefficient. Freiermuth is dealing with injuries. The offensive line's still in shambles. I can't bet on the Steelers' offense right now, and I believe in their defense. I think their defense could go out there and ball out and hold the Ravens to 17 points, and I still think Baltimore would cover in that kind of case because I would see Pittsburgh putting up 10. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Ravens. I hope this one doesn't come back to bite me because I don't know, classic Mike Tomlin, he totally would.
Yeah, I feel like whenever either of us are extremely confident against Pittsburgh, it never goes well. But then other times when we believe in them and stuff, who knows? It's usually the opposite. But I am also going with Baltimore. I'm just going with the standard 100. I'm more scared just because of that factor, of the Pittsburgh factor of once again, we're just to add on that point, how many times have we been so vehemently been this is Pittsburgh's got no chance this game, but then guess what? Their defense somehow, either TJ Watt or maybe Minka, gets two turnovers and also converts them into touchdowns or something of the sort.
Yeah.
And then it's oh, well, now even if they don't win the game, oh, well, they're closer to the spread. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Baltimore too, getting a little bit healthier. Their O-line looking like they'll be mostly healthy except for maybe Morgan Moses, but nonetheless. And last week too, I thought they stuck with the run a little bit more, and that's been a big weakness of Pittsburgh, just statistically, and especially losing Cam Hayward early in this season. We're kind of seeing that effect in regards to their poor run defense. So yeah, I think Baltimore takes care of business, and you already hit on the offensive side of the ball that Pittsburgh's a mess, and I'm still upset on myself last week I only put 100 on Houston, but man, I obviously hindsight, but yeah, Pittsburgh is in a bad spot offensively, so we'll see.
And to be fair to you, I put 50, but Houston also just hadn't faced a defense that was oh yeah, that's a legit defense as of yet, where they had performed. They played Jacksonville, they played Indianapolis, and then who did they play week 1? They played Baltimore and they got crushed. So it felt this is the best defense they played. So that's why I only put 50. Yeah. But Stroud's legit. So
yeah, we definitely learned that. So going with Baltimore, both John and myself. John putting a big old 300 there. I'm only putting the standard 100. So we'll see if Baltimore can pull through for us. Let's go to Detroit, where the Lions are at home off their little mini bye because they played last Thursday. But they are favored by 9.5 points, hosting the Carolina Panthers, the winless Carolina Panthers. Who do you have here, John, and for how much?
Yeah, I'm not too confident that Detroit in this big of a spread that I can take them yet. I like Detroit. I don't really love what I'm seeing out of Carolina, but still 9.5 is a really big number. It feels like this could be a situation where, yeah, sure, maybe Detroit's looking like they're going to cover and Carolina sort of backdoor covers. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, they could still lose by a decent margin where the game is out of hand for quite some time in the fourth quarter, get like a late touchdown or field goal and, make it a 9-8 point game. And there you go. Like, they've backdoored covered, even though the game wasn't relatively close. Like, it could be one of those games I'm saying where, like, really Detroit technically won by, like, 14, 17, something like that. But then kind of at the end, Carolina scrapped something together. And also, as much as I like Detroit and what I've been seeing out of them, David Montgomery hasn't been super efficient. Like, they're giving him a ton of carries, but he's not been like, I don't know. He's averaging like 2-3 yards a pop, it feels like, every time he touches the ball. And so I don't know. That takes away some of the overall potential that I think they could be getting out of their offense if they were like to give, I don't know, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs more touches. I still am a believer that he deserves more. Jameson Williams is going to come back, and I think they were going to want to try and get involved, but who knows how well that goes. I don't know. The 9.5 just feels big for an offense led by Jared Goff to me, basically.
Yeah, and also, like, Carolina's defense is solid. Like, we've seen they're above average. Just fortunately, their offense can never pick up their weight the past, at least definitely this year, but the past few years, it seems like. And we kind of saw it with the Minnesota game. They mucked that game up. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Detroit does win this one, but I could easily see it being like 20-6 or 20-7. It's just an ugly game. It's already over. But then, yeah, like you mentioned, maybe Carolina just makes, last 4 minutes, spends that whole 4 minutes on getting some points, confidence drive, and boom, they cover. So, yeah, I'm going with Carolina as well, only for 50 as well as you. So we're both just playing the spread there, or, for the Panthers. So we're taking the points. We'll see if Carolina can at least keep it within that range for this one. But let's go over to Atlanta, where the Falcons are at home. They are favored by 1.5, hosting the Houston Texans. Yeah, a little bit of surprise Atlanta's favored, I think, for some of us. But nonetheless, who do you have here and for how much, John?
Yeah, I'm going Houston. I'm going to put 150 on him. I agree that I'm surprised Atlanta's favored. Here's the reason I'm not going super huge. Like, I'm still confident in Houston. But I do think that Atlanta's got a good defense. Like, I think that the defense they have is somewhat underrated. And so that could be a bit of an issue for Stroud. But we saw him against Pittsburgh do really good. So I'm not too worried about him specifically. But I do think that Atlanta's defense could maybe make this the toughest performance Stroud has had, because like I said, I think that defense is somewhat underrated. But offensively, it's similar to Pittsburgh. Like, I believe in Bijan, I just don't believe in almost anything else. I'm still waiting for the Kyle Pitts and Drake London breakout to happen, and we've been waiting for years, and we know that they're capable of it. We know the talent they have. We see it, glimpses of it every week when they get their 2 opportunities. But other than that, I'm just not quite confident that Atlanta's going to be able to keep up with CJ Stroud, despite the fact that I do think that, their defense can hold them in it for a while. I think at some point in that second half, after the coaching staff, because, the coaching staff has done a really good job for the Houston Texans. I'll say that. I think after maybe they see what Atlanta's kind of doing, they can adjust. They come back out in the second half. Stroud has a good performance. Boom. Houston kind of pulls away late, and they come out with the win. So, yeah, I'm taking Houston. I'm going to put 150.
Never thought, at least going into the season, that I would ever be putting a bet of this amount on Houston. But here we are. Welcome to the season. I'm going 450 on Houston. I just, like you said, I'm not confident in Atlanta. And I just got to see Ridder put together a full good game, full 4 quarters of being a good quarterback. And on the flip side, I mean, even though his only turnovers have been fumbles, but for the most part, CJ Stroud's been protecting the ball, and he's shown the past few weeks too. He hasn't taken 0 sacks despite missing a bunch of offensive linemen. So his pocket presence has been amazing. Just his decision making, even it's just been so mature for a guy like him. Even times he's willing to throw the ball away. Just those little things that just keep drives alive, or he doesn't take terrible sack, things like that. And yeah, that's Houston's defense too. I think a little been flying under the radar. They hasn't been pretty. They're still a young defense, but like I said, Will Anderson and the other has been pretty good, and their line's been solid. Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins have been solid as well. And there's two young linebackers, both from Alabama, have been really good also. So yeah, I just feel like I don't think they will get bullied around by the run game by Atlanta, like I've already alluded to, as well as John. The passing game in Atlanta has been lacking, to say the least.
It's pitiful.
Yes, there you go. It's probably the more fitting word, is pitiful. So we are both going Houston, are both believing in them. John's going for Houston, or putting 150 on the Texans. I'm going with 450. Spoiler alert, that is my biggest bet of the week for Houston, is on Houston. So we'll see if Stroud and the Texans can pull one out for the both of us. I desperately need it more than you, so hopefully they do so. Otherwise, I'm definitely going to be in shambles. But nonetheless, let's go over to New England, where the Patriots are at home. They are favored by 1.5, hosting the New Orleans Saints. This is a tough one because both these teams have definitely been mid, especially since the departure of their legendary quarterbacks. Who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I'm going to take the Saints. It's in large part due to their defense. I haven't really loved what I've seen out of Mac Jones as of late. I know it was against Dallas, but I feel like he's been a little risky with the ball. I don't know. I just feel like the Saints defense, I keep saying this, and I mean, at least last week, I think I was wrong on them against Tampa, but I think the Saints defense will keep them in this one. Just similar situation that we've kind of always said about the Patriots, that they just don't really have any playmakers that scare me, that make me think that they're going to be able to pull away in this one. And so I think it's going to be close. And in that, I think I'm gonna lean towards Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, who's been looking good, to maybe make that extra play, get him over the top. I think this could be a week where maybe we start to see there be a little bit more public pressure on Mac Jones. And not saying that he should be benched, but we've seen it before where everybody gets up in arms about Bailey Zappi. So yeah, I'm taking the Saints. I'm gonna put only 50 on them because this game does feel scary.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm putting 50 on the Patriots. I just feel like Saints offense has definitely been struggling. Even though Kamara returned last week, it was good on the ground. We saw how inefficient the passing game was. It seems like I think Derek Carr apparently practiced limited as of today, Wednesday, when we're recording. So it seems like they're going to throw him out here there again. And granted, yes, he should be more healthy than last week, but last week was not very good from him, and you can tell that he was limited. And I just think it's hard to win in the NFL when you're limited, and especially against New England. Bill Belichick, we know Belichick's probably going to be willing to play some more aggressive coverages and throw some blitzes. Really test Derek Carr and say, hey, can you make these throws that you may be able to make when you're fully healthy, but now we know you're dinged with your shoulder, and this is a continuing issue or continuing injury. Like, how good is that shoulder, basically, is what he's going to feel like in the test. On the flip side, I would imagine that New England is, especially Belichick and Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien, that they're smart enough to look at last week, assess, be like, all right, Mac, remember who you are, remember who we have around you. Let's just play smart football, just be efficient, protect the ball, all the cliches and such. So that's still not giving me much confidence, as obviously I'm only going 50 with the Patriots and John's going with the Saints for 50. So a difference for us, but it's not like a huge swing. It's nonetheless, we'll see who ends up on top there, as both teams desperately, especially the Patriots in the stacked AFC, need a win to kind of turn the ship around, because both teams have kind of been reeling recently. But let's go over to the Dolphins, who are coming off that tough loss against the Bills. They're at Miami, favored by 10.5, hosting the New York Giants. Basically, I feel like we both feel that Miami will win this one. The question is, do we think that they will cover? So do you think that they'll cover, John? And if so, for how much?
Yeah, I'm going to take Miami, and I'm actually doing this live on the spot. I'm upping my bet here. I was going to go 100. I'm putting 250 on it. I really think Miami's going to score upper 30s, low 40s on this Giants team. I mean, like, if Seattle was able to do what they're able to do against them, like, I just don't see why a team as dynamic as Miami, who's coming off a tough loss, is going to want some revenge here, can't do the same thing. And the Giants just can't score. Like, their offense isn't good. It's very bad. Saquon might be back this week, but I still don't even necessarily think he should be, because all the reports are it's a high ankle sprain, and high ankle sprains take at least a month, if not 2. And it's only been, like, what, 3 weeks? Yeah. Almost a month. And so he'd be rushing back early to try and save a season that I think is already lost. And I don't know. I just feel like the Giants are just so one-dimensional that the Dolphins can do whatever they want in terms of just stop Saquon, and then that's it. Like, that's all you got to do, because I'm not scared of Daniel Jones beating me. So yeah, I'm going to take Miami. I'm putting 250 on him. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm going with the no. I'm going with Miami as well. Only for 100 though. I'm just obviously a little scared because Giants' backs are against the wall. So I'm assuming that they are going to be trying to throw their best shot. I don't know. Just maybe they have some sort of trick play on offense, something to get that offense going. I just fear that, and 10's a lot, but nonetheless, I'm still going to Dolphins, like you mentioned. I just think you already mentioned about how poor the New York offense has been. And I expect this to kind of be a boost for the Miami defense. They've had I forget point size, but they're up there in regards to one of the quote unquote worst defenses. But we know that this defense has talent, and I just feel like this would be a perfect get right game for Vic Fangio and that unit. And yeah, on the other side, I'll be very interested to see if Wink Martindale does keep trying to do, stays true to his kind of blitz heavy mantra and leaving his corners on islands against this crew.
There's just no way. Like, you can't, Like, it's Tyreek Hill, dude.
I would assume so, but Hill? You never know with him. And nonetheless, yeah, I just think Miami is just too hard to stop. I feel like, especially after last week, coming off that kind of tough / blowout loss to a division rival, they're just going to come back with an extra attitude and, no longer undefeated. So that little, I know it was only like a 3-0, but hey, but that's off the back. You got your first loss. Okay. I feel like they're going to bounce back off that and use it as fuel. So not as confident as John. John's going with 250 for the Dolphins. I'm only going for 100 just because I'm scared. Essentially, I'm scared of random football happening. So we'll see what happens for the Dolphins.
For the record, I will say, obviously I say this in jest because I don't really believe this, but they're on the road for the Giants, and I sent you the thing earlier about the Giants have yet to score a touchdown on their home field. Now, they did play, I believe it was Dallas and Seattle in those 2 games, and Dallas held them to 0, and then Seattle held them to 3. So, yeah, but the fact that they're playing on the road, at least they can score touchdowns on the road. So,
yeah, we'll see.
The Giants, that is.
The Giants, yes. We'll see, though. We'll see if they can right the ship, but not looking likely, as the spread says otherwise, and we say otherwise. Because we're even though it's a big spread, we're both picking we're both picking Miami against the spread, so that's funny. All right, so the last game of the early Sunday slot is the Tennessee Titans, fresh off that dominant win against the Bengals. They are favored by 1.5, going to Indianapolis to play the Colts. So game is at Indianapolis. So a divisional game here. Who do you have, John, and for how much?
Yeah, this game, I'm going to take the Colts. This is a tougher one. I mean, the spread says that as well, considering how close it is. I'm taking the Colts, though. I do like what I've seen out of the Tennessee offense recently, but I don't know how much I just don't know if it's because the teams they're playing are bad. Like, I mean, last week it was, Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's just, it's been rough. It's been very rough. And then they played Jacksonville, Cleveland before that, which Cleveland, kind of smacked them, but they played Jacksonville earlier in the season, and, they looked, actually, no, they didn't. Am I tripping? No, they didn't play Jacksonville. They played the Saints, who, their offense, it's a little rough. So, anyway, point being, I like what I've seen last week, but I don't know how sustainable it is. It was the Chargers, not the Jaguars. It was the Chargers that I was thinking of, who they beat. And the Chargers defense is just absolutely pitiful. Now, I don't like the Colts secondary, but at the same time, I haven't really seen Ryan Tannehill in this passing attack give me enough to where I believe that they're going to be able to expose it that much. And on the other side, I think that Anthony Richardson in this offense has been pleasantly surprising. I think that his ability to create with his legs is going to be able to, keep them in this game. And who knows? We could also see a Jonathan Taylor sighting back at this game. And if that happens, I expect this line to move. Quite frankly, I expect the Colts to be the favorites. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know Vegas. I don't know if he's worth 1.5 points, but I do think he makes a positive impact on the spread. So that would be a benefit for me. So I'm taking the Colts. Only going to put 100, but I believe in the Colts. I'll say that.
I'm with you. I'm going with the Colts. Not putting 100. I'm only going to put 50 because I'm just, like you already alluded to, Tennessee. They can do just Tennessee things where, just I'll muck this game up or somehow, some way, they only have like probably 180 total yards of offense, still end up winning this. But I'm going with the Colts. Like you mentioned, Anthony Richardson's been very good. And although, hey, he's been a little bit inconsistent, it feels like he's kind of starting to find his flow at times. And the passing offense has been explosive, may not be consistent, as you see with his completion percentage, but he can still deliver some strikes, and we know that the receivers are built for that in Pittman and Alec Pierce. And although last week, they shut down the Bengals, like you already alluded to, the Bengals have been poor or pitiful, basically, especially on offense. And I just feel like, even going into last week, we were talking about how, hey, you can't really run on the Titans, but you can definitely throw on them. And I just feel like it would be a good recipe for Anthony Richardson to get some further confidence, and especially with that receiving core. And on the flip side, I think the Colts run defense, especially their front seven, I think they'll be able to handle the Titans and not let Derrick Henry get going, because we know that's the formula, is they're going to feed Henry, and then hopefully you start overcommitting and they can hit some play action shots with Tannehill. But I don't think that'll happen, as well as you, because we are both going with the Indianapolis Colts. John going with them for 100. I'm going with the Colts for 50. So that is the early games. Let's go to the later afternoon games on Sunday, starting with the aforementioned Bengals. They are favored by 2.5 on the road, going to Arizona, where the Cardinals are the underdog. So who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I am going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe I'm a fool, but at some point they got to bounce back, right? Like, I just refuse to believe that Cincinnati is really this bad. I just refuse to believe it. And I know that Joe Burrow is still dealing with the injury, and you can go listen to last episode if you want to hear my whole rant about how he should not be playing if that's the case. But 2.5 just feels so small for just the talent gap that's here. I think Mixon can have a good game. I think Jamar Chase can continue to do well, because despite how bad the offense has been, at least he's been doing well. So I don't know. It feels weird, like, because Cincinnati clearly, like, I even saw a post from a fantasy football thing, and they're a sizable account, so it's not like this is just some random Joe Schmo. They had like 150,000 followers, and they're saying you can just drop Joe Burrow in fantasy now, which that's not an indicator as to real football, but just it shows how low the opinion of the Bengals is to start this season. And so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just, at some point, Cincinnati's got to bounce back, right? They have to. They have to. I'm only going to put 50 because I'm still not quite ready to commit to it, but I'm going to take the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm off that train. I'm major concerned with Cincinnati. It doesn't help that it just feels like they can't. I'm more that they probably won't be able to turn it around, at least not anytime quickly, just because Burrow just hasn't looked any better with the injury. It doesn't help that their line is just terrible, so that never helps. And then now T. Higgins too. He may play this game, but even then, it seems like he may obviously deal with the rib injury, and that's due to pain management. How much of T. Higgins will you even get? And he's already kind of not had a great start to the season when he was healthy. So, I'm just not confident in the Bengals. I won't be shocked if they do win this game, and it's just kind of a scrappy affair. But I'm leaning more on the Cardinals. I'm putting 100 on them as well. I won't be shocked if they pull out the win outright. They've been a scrappy team. I know the 49ers game last week, if you look at the score, it's bigger, but as we alluded to last episode, especially you, that it was a closer game going into the fourth quarter. It was what 21-16 or 20. It was a one possession game, and then hey, you know, just the dams kind of burst. But it's the 49ers, so of course, while Cincinnati can't run the ball. And their passing game, like we mentioned last episode, is extremely limited because, you know, Burrow's obviously limited. He's hurt. And they can't protect for even to try to take a deep shot. So, yeah, as good as and as much respect as I have for Cincinnati's defense, I just feel like Arizona, especially on offense, Dobbs done a very good job of just taking care of the ball. They've been patient with the run. Like, I've liked what they've done offensively. It's definitely better than, you know, the previous regime and more creative, too, as we see, you know, guys like Michael Wilson and, you know, even Hollywood Brown's been having a really good year thus far as well. So, and as well as James Conner, of course. So, yeah, I'm going with the Cardinals. Once again, kind of like my theme. I know what I'm getting from them, and it's wild to say. But kind of like with the Houston thing, I trust Arizona more right now. So that's why I'm going with the Cardinals. I'm going with them for 100. So interesting swing we got going here. As John is going with the Bengals. Maybe we'll see if they burn us or burn you, because I like I said, after last week they burned me. I hopped off that train. So
did I pick them last week?
we both picked Cincinnati against because we thought this was it. Tennessee, they have a poor passing defense. And you know, they don't have like outside of Jeffrey Simmons, no like a edge rusher that a guy that scares you. It didn't matter.
I did pick them against the Rams, so I picked them 2 weeks in a row. Let me see. I picked them 3 weeks in a row. I have picked them. I did not. I picked them 4 weeks in a row, and
you got them week one also.
Yeah, so 5 weeks in a row now. I got it wrong 3 times. So. This now that I know that, this might be my final week. I'm not going to change it, but this might be my final week if they don't get it together. Because the Rams one, I guess, at least saved me. Because if I look back on that and was like, "Oh, I'm 0-4," I might have changed it live on the spot.
You would have been like, "Wait a minute, I'm losing. They're literally losing me money, or quote unquote money, because it's not our real money. Thank God." Anyways, let's go on to speaking of the Rams to their game. They're going up against the Eagles. Eagles are the favorite, the Philadelphia Eagles, by 4.5 points. This game will be at LA for the Rams. So who do you have here between these two, and for how much?
All right, I am going to go with the Rams. And I don't know. I had been kind of on a train of picking against Philly outside of like the week they played Tampa. I picked them and I went pretty big on them, but last week I picked them against Washington, but to start the season I was picking against them, and it just feels like the games they're playing, like teams are competitive against them. Like week 2 I picked Minnesota covered. Week 1, the Eagles did cover, but it was against the Patriots, and even then like the Patriots were close. Like Mac Jones threw for 300 yards against them and had 3 touchdowns, and I don't know, just the lack of defense in terms of stopping the pass, like the safety depth is a concern. The nickel corners is a concern because their 2 options there are both pretty much out for the year. So I don't know. I think there's spots that they're beatable here, and I've liked what I've seen out of Stafford. We could be getting Cooper Kupp back, but even with that unconfirmed, I'm still picking them. Like if I don't know. I believe in Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee, the guys that they got going, even Kyron Williams have just looked good in the passing game. And so I think that they can make some plays happen here. The one thing that worries me is that Philly defensive line really getting in the face of Stafford, but he's been all right so far. So I'm going to believe in him, and I need him to have a good game because I'm starting him in 2 fantasy leagues. So because Herbert's on a bye week. So yeah. But I'm going to take the Rams. I'm only going to put 50 because Philly still scares me. But the 4.5, I don't know. I could see this game maybe being like a field goal win for Philly, considering how they've been playing recently.
Yeah. So I do hear all that, and it'll be a very interesting matchup because the Rams are very good with Sean McVay and Stafford, especially this year, at generating the quick throws and so that Stafford isn't sitting back there getting killed. They've been very good at that, and especially if they do get the boost of Cooper Kupp, like you mentioned, I don't see how Philly's secondary can consistently cover all 3 of those guys and Tyler Higbee. So that'll be an interesting matchup. But I'm still going with Philly. I'm going with them for 100. I just think on the flip side, they've kind of simplified on offense. I think they've been Philadelphia. They've been more willing to just mash it and run the ball. We know how great their offensive line is, and obviously how good their running back room is, and as well as Jalen Hurts. I just feel like with the LA Rams, size is a little bit of an issue, and Aaron Donald's really the only difference maker up front. So I think that's a way that they're just going to muck this game up. Be physical, lean on that, and then kind of force the Rams into tough positions where, hey, you're going to have to load the box more than you want to, leaving, AJ Brown or Devonta Smith on one-on-ones. And kind of like we saw last week, when they had those one-on-ones, they were able to take advantage and, strike big on that. So, yeah, I'm going with Philly there. Even though their Philadelphia's defense, especially in the secondary, like you mentioned, huge issues there. I just feel like with how deep their defensive line is, eventually they're going to start getting home. And especially if they do get ahead, then it just makes it easier. And I worry that the Rams aren't going to be able to run the ball also. So once again, that makes it easier for those pass rushers to literally know that, okay, they're just going to drop back. We don't have to worry about the run game since that hasn't really been successful, or that the Rams offensive line isn't the best. So I'm going with Philly for 100. John is going with the LA Rams for 50 to at least cover and maybe pull off the upset. So we'll see how that one turns out. Let's go over to Kansas, to the Chiefs. They're not at home, but the Chiefs are favored by 3.5 going to Minnesota. So basically playing the Vikings. So who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm putting 300 on it. I feel confident. Quite frankly, I think this line is somewhat disrespectful to the Chiefs. I know that the offense hasn't quite been going at the rate that we've all expected, but this Vikings defense is bad. I mean, the Chargers and Justin Herbert, they picked them apart. And the only reason that game was somewhat close was because the Chargers defense is terrible. The Chiefs defense has actually looked pretty good this year. I know that maybe last week all the Swifties might not think so because, well, actually they don't know anything about Zach Wilson, so their perception is a little bit warped. So they might just think that Zach Wilson's like a really great quarterback, which once again, credit to him. He had a good game. But the Chiefs defense has been good, is my point, on the season as a whole. And so I think that this just feels like a game where Minnesota is going to be playing from behind. I do think Justin Jefferson can do some damage here. But in those sort of games, I'm taking Kansas City every time, and I'm betting big on it with the 300.
Yeah, I thought about betting big, but I'm going with the Chiefs. I'm just not going big. I'm only going for 100 just because this haven't seen the explosiveness in the offense, and I won't be shocked if they lean more on their run defense. But it is also Minnesota. They did. I'm not sure if they'll go with their approach they did with Herbert, where they blitzed him. A majority of the game, literally majority of the game, because obviously you don't want to do that against Mahomes either. So obviously that's a mismatch, like you've mentioned. And on the flip side, I will be very interested to see if the Chiefs defense can. I expect them to, because Steve Spagnuolo is usually good about doubling guys and just taking some risks, but also not letting certain guys absolutely kill them. I.e. Justin Jefferson. So I'm going with the Chiefs. Yeah, I think they kind of take care of business, get back on track. I won't be shocked if they do blow them out, but who knows? But nonetheless, I'm only going for 100, just because, like I said, it just still doesn't feel like the receiving group is kind of living up to what some of us expected them to. Like Sky Moore's kind of been meh. Same with I know Tony's dealing with injuries, for most of his career, so maybe they're limiting him, but he's been kind of mid to say the least. And I've already mentioned about Marquez Valdez-Scantling, how he's good for a drop usually. So, and although I will say Rashee Rice has been solid for them, but once again, Rashee Rice not like a game breaker. He's kind of trying to fit that Juju Smith-Schuster role that because Juju left. Seems like he's kind of trying to fill that role. So, nonetheless, wouldn't be shocked if they lean on the run game. Going with the Chiefs here as well. John going with the Chiefs for 300. I am going with them for 100 to cover that 3.5 point spread over the Vikings. But let's go over to a game that unfortunately would have been more exciting if Mr. Rodgers was healthy, but obviously not. But still, some headlines grabbing nonetheless, as the Denver Broncos are at home and they are favored by 1.5 points over the New York Jets. And obviously I'm alluding to the whole, Sean Payton kind of dogging on Nathaniel Hackett and all that, stuff. Because also, so how do you see this one panning out, and who you putting money on?
I'm going to go low. I'm only putting 50, and I'm going to put it on the Jets. Denver, yeah, like the offense has been moving the ball, but the Jets defense are no slouches. They looked good last week against Kansas City, and I think they can do that again. Javonte Williams is also a little bit banged up. I don't know if he's necessarily good to go yet, so that could be a little bit of concern. Although Jaleel McLaughlin did look good in his minimal amount of touches, you're now going against like I said, a really good Jets defense. And I don't know. I feel like Sauce can kind of take Courtland Sutton out of this game. And like Marvin Mims is good for like a one or two big plays, but like Jerry Jeudy hasn't been great. Mims overall, like outside of the big plays, hasn't really been a like consistent contributor. It's just kind of been grinding it out with the run game. And then Sutton's kind of your guy, and then everybody else fits in there. But Sauce is one of those guys that can take someone completely out of the game. And so without Sutton, I just worry about who else is going to step up. And on the other side of the ball, the Broncos defense has been pitiful. Although I'm not a big Zach Wilson believer, I do love the talent they have. And Robert Saleh has just announced this week that they will no longer be putting Breece Hall on a pitch count. He is good to go. And I mean, heck, the last time that we saw Breece Hall last year, but before his injury, was in the first quarter against this very Denver Broncos defense. And the guy was going absolutely crazy, including like that 70-yard reception that almost went for a touchdown. He like got knocked down at like the 1 or 2 yard line. And so he's shown the ability to do well against Denver in one quarter that he got to play. And I would love to see him specifically pick up right where he left off and just go crazy against this Denver defense, because the opportunity is certainly there. So I'm taking the Jets. I'm only going to put 50. The bet was a little bit larger, but earlier when I put more on the Dolphins, I had to take some points away from some of these teams. So I took some off this game. I was going to go the standard 100 though, but yeah, going 50.
I'm going standard 100 on the Jets. Same reasons you mentioned. Like, I just feel like I'm banking on the fact too that the Jets are going to build off that offensive performance they had last week as a whole. They had some good play calling, got Zach Wilson into some, favorable positions and kind of got him some confidence. But even if that doesn't go, like you mentioned, Breece Hall and it's a solid run blocking offensive line. So, and yeah, we've seen Denver. We saw them really get run all over the week a couple weeks ago. Granted, that was Miami. Nonetheless, run defense has not been their strong suit, to say the least. So, yeah, I think I'm going with the Jets as well. And yeah, you already mentioned the defense. The Jets defense, we all know it's really good. I know Kansas City put 17 on them, but as we saw after that, it seems like the Jets kind of finally settled in, and we saw them, although Mahomes, threw a couple of bad receptions, even then they were, getting after him, and also not a lot of guys were open. So I'm going with the New York Jets. Also, John going with them for 50. I'm going with the Jets for 100, and with 1.5, basically we're picking it for them to win, but hey, we'll take them covering somehow if they only lose by 1. But it'll be interesting to see, what happens there. If there's any sort of chippiness, with between the players and such or whatever, or, post game, we'll see how that one goes. But let's go to the Sunday night game. It will be in San Francisco, where the 49ers are favored by 3.5, hosting your Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, for the historians, a bit of rivalry here. And obviously, recently, you could say there's a little bit of rivalry, although I'm sure, as you know, it's a little bit more one-sided. Nonetheless, who are you going with here, John, and for how much?
I'm going to go with San Francisco. I am only going to put 50 because this is a close game, and 3.5. I mean, San Francisco could come out and score by, and win by 3 because, although I would agree it has been one-sided. San Francisco's gotten the better of Dallas the last 2 years in the playoffs as well. They've been low-scoring games. These teams are both headlined by their defenses, but the difference for me that kind of puts it over the edge is the McCaffrey factor. George Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, the playmakers they got over there. Kyle Shanahan, I think, is the better coach. I'm going with San Francisco to get the edge because in these low-scoring games, which I do expect this one to be another one, I think this is a 21-17, 21-14 kind of game where San Francisco kind of narrowly covers. in those kind of games, I'm banking on McCaffrey or somebody on that San Francisco side to be the one that makes the big play that kind of separates them just that little bit. Like the two teams might be even, but that one play can be the difference maker. And as much as I love my Cowboys, and I do think they have a chance to go out there and surprise San Francisco here, McCaffrey's been on a heater. The Niners offense has been moving and grooving. We have yet to see really any weaknesses out of them. To where Dallas, they weren't able to really handle their business against the Cardinals. The run defense, although it got back on track last week against the Patriots, they showed some holes against against the Cardinals. And that the Niners certainly took notes on what they were doing there. The thing that I noticed in that game specifically was a lot of pulling guards, movement along the offensive line action to create space for James Conner. And I certainly think that Kyle Shanahan is going to implement some of those exact same things. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough test for Dallas. And like I said, I think they can keep it close, but I'm ultimately going to take the Niners.
Me too. I'm going with San Francisco. You already mentioned a lot of great points. The only other one I want to add to is a concern for Dallas has been their red zone efficiency, and especially you mentioned if it's going to be a low scoring game, and even that if you're playing against the Niners, these elite teams, especially offenses, you got to put set 6 up as opposed to get touchdowns as opposed to settle for field goals, and creativity obviously plays a factor in that. And as you mentioned, we both feel that, and it's pretty much fact that Kyle Shanahan is just a more creative and better offensive play caller and designer than Mike McCarthy. And it's kind of shown, like I said, this year with the red zone. It's been tough for Dallas to punch in touchdowns to do so. And yeah, I just think, especially against that Niner defense too, where they're fine with bending, not breaking, and then playing really good short yardage red zone defense where they can just fly around, without having to worry about giving up the big play. Yeah, I just feel like favors San Francisco, and especially it being at San Francisco, I think that helps too. And yeah, like you mentioned, the offense is kind of rolling and healthy, fully healthy. I mean, I know Debo's dealing with his injury, but he was out there last week. I assume he'll be even more healthy this week and probably more involved because he was. I don't think he even caught a pass last week. So. Yeah, I expect we both going with San Francisco. John going with the Niners for 50. I'm going a little bit higher with the standard 100 on the 49ers.
By the way, I do think the interesting thing about this game is going to be, like you mentioned, the Cowboys' red zone offense has been pretty bad. The Niners' red zone defense has been the one thing that you could really knock this team for. Red zone defense has not been good for them. That was kind of what kept Arizona in the game. Is once teams got there, they're able to capitalize and get touchdowns. So it'll certainly be interesting to see who can kind of break out of their funk. Will the Niners red zone defense step up, or will the Cowboys red zone offense? Because that's been the weakness for both units, and they're going to go head to head. So
we'll see what happens, who wins that matchup basically. So that's a Sunday night game. Let's go to the sole Monday night game. There's no, I thought we were supposed to, I was told we were supposed to have multiple weeks of having doubleheaders, but I don't know.
We had 2 weeks, but
yeah, but is that it? I was told we were having more than that. Okay, well, great, because I hated having 2 games going on at once personally. Anyway, and one of them usually ended up kind of being dud. So there's only one, and maybe this one will be a dud generally. But it is my Packers. They are favored by 1.5, going to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. So who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I am going to take your Packers. I'm only going to put 50. I was a little bit torn on this one. Honestly, I don't really know what to expect out of either team in this game. So I kind of just went with the team that I feel a little bit more confident in, being Green Bay, because the Raiders just, there's just a lot of about them, Like they don't inspire you. There's not a thing about them that really makes I don't really why would I want to pick the Raiders? There's just not a lot going on there. It's just Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. I guess he got in the end zone last week, but I don't know. I'll take the Packers. Like I said, I'm only going to put 50 because this game just feels weird.
Yeah, I'm doing with the standard 100 on Green Bay. Like I said, I've liked what I've seen from the offense. I know last week wasn't great, especially in regards to just having consistent drives. But like we've mentioned with the Raiders defense, especially in the secondary, no one that really scares you. And hey, Christian Watson, another week healthier. Actually, let me double check. I actually don't even see him like on at least the ESPN injury report. So hopefully that means that hamstring is 100%. But nonetheless, even we've seen Dobbs and January, we've seen some of these young receivers, step up to help Jordan Love and Love hit them. And even if there's no Luke Musgrave and obviously no Bakhtiari, could get Elton Jenkins back regardless. I think Packers offense will be fine. And on the flip side, like I've liked what the Packers defense has done. I know the Detroit kind of mashed them, but obviously comparing Detroit to the Vegas, Detroit's offensive line is just way better. And we saw, obviously saw Khalil Mack go crazy. I don't expect a Packer to have, was it 5-6 sacks. But I do expect the Packers front seven to kind of win that battle. And like you mentioned, it's really just Devontae Adams. We could get Jair Alexander back, so that'll be a fun potential matchup if they do line up. But regardless, I really am hoping though that Joe Barry is aggressive, because at times he's just way too passive, giving too much space and we know how good Devontae Adams is, and just hopefully he presses and gets a little aggressive, disrupts timings as opposed to just letting guys run free and, let's just play sound, zone defense, but we'll give up, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time. I don't know. But nonetheless, like you said, not a lot inspires you with Vegas in regards to them. So I'm going with the Packers. Hopefully they don't burn me again. If they burn me again, I may have to resort to previous seasons' strategies, because I've picked 2 straight weeks. Picked them. They didn't. 3 straight weeks I've picked them and have not covered. There's really only week 1 that came through for me, and I mean you picked them too that week. So kind of like with Cincinnati, I may have to get off this train. Although I'll be doing it for jinx purposes, but nonetheless. Those are our picks for week 5. Once again, 4 teams on bye. Let me see if I can pull up who I forget. I know it's the Chargers, Browns. How am I blanking on the Chargers, Browns, Seahawks, Bucks. So those teams are on bye weeks. So if you're a fan of those teams, you don't have to worry about footballs unless obviously you're a fantasy owner or play fantasy. But